Good morning, everyone. It is 10 o'clock. As we have recently with other meetings, we're going to wait just a few minutes to get started to give everybody a chance to sign on and be allowed into the meeting room. So hang tight for just a moment, please. Just a couple more minutes and we'll get started.
Okay, cool.
Okay, it looks like we've reached kind of a stable number of folks. Not a whole lot of people asking to come into the meeting, so let's go ahead and get started. The time is 10:04 a.m. The date is January 8th. Yes, 2021. I know what year it is. This is a stakeholder meeting on two rules that are anticipated to be proposed at the upcoming commission meeting. One is a new Rule 33.16, which will have a limited term of applicability, and the other is a revision to Rule 33.3. My name is Shana Horton. I serve as the Commission's Rules Attorney. But today you'll be hearing mostly from Retta Mosley. She's the point person on this. However, I will be the clearinghouse for any comments or questions that you have. So with that said, the normal kind of rules of the Zoom meeting apply. Keep yourself muted unless you need to ask a question or make a comment. This is an informal exchange of information. So if you have a question, you're welcome to raise your hand at any time. And we will be pausing after, periodically throughout to leave some open space for questions as we go through. So raise your hand, unmute yourself, say your name, who you represent, then ask your question or make your comment. And we'll just handle it that way. So without further ado, I am going to introduce, we're going to start with proposed rule 33.16. This is the rule that will expire on November 1st, 2021. So its purpose is just to kind of get us through that awkward period later this year. As you're all aware, we have 3 big transitions that are all happening at the same time. It's posing a lot of challenges, of course, and as we've already seen. So we've got the technology transition to the new AIMS licensing system. We will have new fees, and we also have a new set of licenses and permits. So some folks will have to get, will eventually be getting new permits. Some permits will have different things rolled up into them. So we've got a lot of changes happening, and they're all happening on the same day. So in order to make that a more orderly transition, we felt that some rules were necessary. Some things we can just do through policy and through outreach and education and helping all of you navigate with us. Some things we felt it was important to put into rule. And so that's what we have here in 3316. The first sections, A and B, both concern just original permit applications and license applications. So I will hand it over to Retta now to explain what sections A and B of that rule do.
Thanks, Shana. Good morning, everyone. My name is Retta Mosley. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the agency, and I'm here to try to walk you through all of the challenges that we've walked through and hopefully provide you with some good information. We certainly don't anticipate having answered all questions, so we're hoping that you can help bring to light some of the things that we might have missed. I want to give you a little bit of background from the technology perspective, because I think it will help show how we are staging what we are doing with originals, and then ultimately we'll talk about renewals as well. But from a technology perspective, we are doing a massive overhaul here at the agency, bigger than anything that's ever been done at one time at the agency. So we will have one system, which is the old system, what I call a legacy system. And it is programmed to operate with the current fees and the current licensing structure. We are not going to be making any changes to that application, which means that we will have a set time that it will no longer be effective. So what we will be doing is transitioning to AIMS, that stands for Alcohol Industry Management System, and that is going to be the cradle to grave solution that we use here at the agency. And it will be the one that you use to interact with us and to do your business with us. It goes into effect September 1, and it is programmed only with new licensing structures, and then the new fees, when they are decided, will be added. And all of that will go live September 1st. The odd month out of all of that is August, and that is where we will be doing behind the scenes, where we'll be moving your data over, and we will be changing your old license to the new license so that when you log in, you will see what you're supposed to see. And we'll be doing what is in the techie world, we'll be doing some stabilization during that time. So we've got a lot going on that actually affects how we're able to do business. So let's go now then and take that to springboard into the original applications, which in this proposed rule is the A and B part that Shana mentioned. So TABC is going to, by this proposed rule, be able to accept original applications completed and responsive up through July 31st, 2021. July 31st is actually a Saturday, but the reason that date is important is because of a postmark issue that we've worked into this. So the first thing let's do is let's talk about what a complete application is. That's going to include your original application with all questions answered properly and completely. You will have all your necessary certifications obtained. You will have all required publications made. You will have submitted any additional documentation that may be requested by TABC when they're first looking at your application. And then you will have received the TABC payment remittance with a file number on it. And here's where that July 31st date comes into play. You will have either submitted and TABC has in hand the fee that is on that payment remittance, notice, and or you will have put it in the mail and it is postmarked no later than July 31st, 2021. So again, anything submitted as an original application up through July 31st, 2021, it will be under the old or the current, fees and structure, and it has to be completed and received appropriately by TABC by July 31st. Once that date passes, Section B comes into play, and that's where we have a proposed moratorium on original applications. So from August 1 to August 31, 2021, TABC will not be accepting any original applications, whether they be supplementals or for new businesses. So one thing that we encourage you to do is plan accordingly. We can't tell you when to file, but we can tell you when the last date is, right? Because we just don't know from situation to situation how yours would play out in a time span of being reviewed and getting all of your information in. So we just encourage you to plan ahead and look at the dates and how much work you have to do if you do plan on submitting an original to us. So then September 1, the switch goes over and AIMS is turned on and we're live. The new fees, new structures are all in place. And any original applications from September 1 forward will be submitted through AIMS. I will say you can still do paper, but we do not encourage it. We're very excited about this AIMS and the fact that it is streamlined, it's paperless. You get notifications that are built into the system to help you stay on track with us and us to stay on track with you. But you can submit paper if you just absolutely have to, but we do encourage you to use the system because over time, we will be moving everybody to that as much as possible. So the big thing to remember with originals is the date that's most important is when we receive the complete. That receipt date is what determines which fee and licensing structure you fall under. If we receive it July 31 or before, current fees and licensing structure. If we receive it September 1 or after, new fees and licensing structure. I'm going to stop here for any questions. If I can't answer them, I have a lot of people online who can help as well.
I just want to piggyback. This is Shana. I just want to piggyback on what Retta said about planning ahead. Received, as you have been, those of you who have been following rules, you know now that received means the application's complete. There are no additional questions or outstanding issues, and we have the full fee payment. So if you just turn it in by the 31st, just turn in your application and there's no fees with it, or if you turn something in and we need additional information or there's something that's not filled out or incorrect, then it's not going to be complete by the 31st. So I think the big takeaway on this one is that you really need to, if you're going to be filing for an original, you need to do so well in advance of the 31st so that you can make absolutely sure that you've got enough time to get everything done. And like Retta said, we can't tell you exactly what day that might be because it's going to vary from application to application. You know, some people are more responsive than others. You know, some applications are in better shape when they come in than others. And we also have our own workload to manage. So I just wanted to emphasize that point because I think that's the main thing that you all need to keep in mind on the A and B.
I'm not seeing any questions. Joe, do you see anyone?
Marcus Schwartz with Bracken Schwartz PLLC. I have a couple questions if you'd entertain me. As to B with original licenses and permits, are we counting reinstatements and change of locations, which have existing permits as original applications?
I do not know the answer to that question. I'll need somebody from licensing probably to step in. There's Joanne.
Yes, those are all similar to originals, so the answer to that would be yes.
Thank you, Joanne. Sorry for any background noise. There's some construction out front. But one other question relates to certain subset of applications, namely non-resident sellers applications, where we don't get remittance forms from the commission. We just send in the fee directly along with the application. I guess my question on there is, we don't know, for instance, if there's going to be a correction or not from the commission. So theoretically, we could file, July 30th, Friday, for instance, and you could receive it. Does the commission have an idea how they're going to handle that?
Joanne,
Are we going to be, in other words, is the applicant going to be informed if there are any corrections? Hence, then it's not a completed application and you would reject it and return it to us? Or are we going to know if it's been accepted, or is it just kind of a waiting game on the applicant's end? Thank you.
I can answer that if you want. This is Shayna. Yeah, so you will have to turn in your application and fees in time for a response. And of course, we can't promise you response in a certain period of time, which is why we're saying filing on July 30th is not a good idea. Because if your fees are off, if you're missing a piece of information, and we can't get back to you within that one day and have that exchange, then your application is not going to be considered received in time. So this is we have to have a hard cutoff date. That's kind of the only way we can make this work. And we're going to be busting our butts to get those processed, but at the same time, we need y'all to help us out and get things in early enough that we can exchange all that information and get things settled before that date.
And then one final question. Are we going to see any permits actually? I presume we'll see permits issued between July 31 and August 31 that have already been, all corrections have been submitted and you just have to do stuff on the back end. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that is the plan.
And I would take that a step further, Shayna and Marcus, from the perspective of, if it does take a little bit longer, we will still be working all of those received applications even beyond September 1, if by chance it has to go that far, if there's additional questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Keith Coleman with Lone Star Licensing. If we have an application that's in process and for some reason it falls through that time lapse where we don't get payment in, or there's a question that doesn't get answered or something, but let's say it's got all the local certifications and so forth. When the system comes back online and you start accepting applications again, can we continue to submit that existing application, or do we have to back up and start over at scratch again because the permits are changing and so forth and so on? So
I'm going to answer this and then hope that somebody jumps in if I'm wrong, but because it will not be accepted in under the current fees and structure in the current system, you will have to resubmit it into Ames. And so that will start the clock over, and it will be the new fees and new licensing structure will apply.
How will the certifications work in that system?
Lori, are you on the call?
Yes, ma'am, I am. So the certifications will work very similar. However, because the Ames application is more automated, and you're putting in all your information and we don't have paper, the system's going to provide you with a printout, or the ability for you to print out the page that you then take to go get your certifications, and then you would upload your certifications into the Ames system. So that's kind of a little bit different from what you do currently.
So in reality, there's probably going to be a 60 to 90-day gap in there somewhere. People being able to get applications issued.
Depending on the timing, that certainly that they will be processed, hopefully quicker in the new system. But because of that time frame, just between July and then probably through October, that will be more of our stabilization period, not only for the technology, but for everyone getting into the system and getting used to it. But we hope to minimize the number of days as much as possible for you and for your benefit.
And one final question, you said that you would discourage it, but continue to accept paper applications. When it comes back online, will those paper applications be different than the existing applications, I assume?
Yes. We will. I don't know that we're redoing the paper applications. Joanne might want to speak to that part of it, but they definitely are processed differently, because when you submit it by paper, then the TABC people have to put it into the system, into Ames. And so there is an extra amount of time there, Keith, that wouldn't occur if you applied directly online.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Gerald Franklin, Lone Star Liquor Licensing and the Texas Association of Beverage License Services. New applications that are submitted prior to August 1 normally would be submitted without the fees, and y'all would then write back and ask for the proper fee. Is the idea that we would submit the fees with them before we're asked in order to get it in by the deadline?
So Joanne and I talked about that in a prep meeting, and because they need you to have that remittance and that file number, they are asking that you not submit your fees until you get that notification from TABC. And Joanne, please add to that if you'd like.
Does that mean that you're going to ask during that 30-day time frame for the money and go ahead and begin the processing of those applications?
Are you speaking about prior to July 31st?
Submit the application prior to July 31st, and you have not asked for the money. Will you ask during that 30-day period for the money and proceed with the processing of those applications?
So like Shana was saying earlier, for it to be complete and accepted, you need to have gone through that process where you have submitted all of the necessary paperwork, certifications, publications, and any other supplemental documentation. And you have to have received that payment notification and provided your fee to us, or have it at least postmarked if you're mailing it in by that July 31st date. That's why we're saying please plan ahead if you can, and don't wait until that last week, because we can't promise what kind of turnaround there is on an individual application basis, since they all have so many different facets to them potentially.
Looks like that's going to slow things way down. If you got to wait for y'all to respond, you'll never get it done if it's not submitted several weeks in advance of July 31.
Joanne, help again, correct me here, but it's my understanding that we're shooting for a 2 to 3 day turnaround on the remittance notification, correct?
That is correct, Retta. So, please work with us, guys, because this is all coming at us, as Shana and Retta have already explained, all at once for us as well. So that's why we encourage you, if you know that you have a client that wants to get in business, that you get us that application as soon as possible. We have to have a cutoff, so please work with us in that timeline, and we're going to do our best on our end.
Thank you.
This is Amy Harrison Consulting. Happy New Year to everybody. You know, Retta, this isn't the first major conversion that the commission's gone through. And we've gone from legacy systems to new systems, and we've always had vendors that encouraged, if not insisted, that the commission do the very thing you're doing and refuse to receive applications. And previous administrations have just found that not acceptable because of the nature of this business. And previous administrations have found workarounds, including, and Joanne might get a smile, I recall cabinets of paper hanging out where we were issuing permits on paper and then following up months later, actually putting them into the system. And I'm just curious, what workarounds did the commission discuss? And is there really and truly no choice here but to cut off an entire industry for a month when they're still in a pandemic? I mean, our applications are currently being lost. We're not being asked for money for weeks and weeks, and we can't figure out where it's gone. And we're all very patient. We understand we're all going through the same things, but to put forth a rule that says you're not going to accept apps, and I've already heard two different things now. Supplementals aren't in the rule, but now I'm hearing that this applies to supplementals. Is it going to apply to caterings? Is it going to apply to temporaries? You know, what is the full effect of this, and what workarounds were, if at all, discussed?
So Shana had to step away. I do not want to speak for her, Amy, in that respect on what discussions went into the proposal of the rules. That is her area. I can just tell you from a technology perspective, we are doing the best we can to make sure that we are, pardon me, I'm losing my way of thinking, supporting business and helping to make sure that everything before and after goes as smoothly as possible. While I realize this isn't the first major transition, this one is a significant one, and it is taking a lot of time and thought, and we're trying to be as thorough as possible. As I said at the beginning, maybe we didn't think of everything, but we are doing our best from the technology side to make sure that everything is properly covered and that we do the best that we can for business. I would say that maybe we hold your question until Shana's able to get back, and then there she is. So Shana.
I'm back. Yes. I can tell you that we spent many hours trying to figure out the best way to do this. And we felt that it was important to have predictability, and without having a period of time where we're not having new things filed, it would just get very hairy. And then we would end up having a bunch of folks stuck in the system, in the old system, and we'd be unable to make that transition to the new system from the legacy. And we thought that letting everybody know up front, look, if we just have this break, you plan ahead some, then you can know exactly where you're going to stand with the agency, what fees you're going to need to pay, what kind of application you're going to need to turn in, all that kind of stuff. So we're trying to provide the best predictability by having that temporary pause.
Well, Shana, with all due respect, there is no predictability here because we don't know when we're going to get the remit from the commission after it's filed. And I appreciate you bringing up fees. You know, there are people that can't make ends meet right now, and they can't meet their obligations for fees. And now you're asking us to say, hey, okay, we can shut down for a month and we're going to do all these things with new fees. And the industry has no idea what those fees are. And I'm not trying to add to everyone's stress, but we're going to be coming out of a legislative session. And unless, somebody has a crystal ball, we don't know what your staffing is going to look like. We'd have no idea. And I'm very concerned about the fact that although the old system will be up and running, that we're doing something at the convenience of the commission when you could issue permits out of the old system and you could do your own transition in the background, but instead we're going to cut everything off and we're going to cut off the industry. And I would also say that if supplementals can be added to this rule for clarity, I think that would be very helpful to people.
We can definitely look at adding supplementals or some information regarding how that's going to be handled. I'm sorry, I don't have childcare.
May I just say, she's acting the exact same way I want to.
May I ask?
Hi, this is Mike Fannin with Fannin License Service. Just a quick question on when do you anticipate being able to publish the new fees and surcharges?
That's a question for me. I can tell you, we're working on it right now, working on it in the background, and we anticipate, having the full rulemaking proceeding sometime late spring. We obviously have to have them in place by September 1st, so that's driving our timeline.
Okay, thank you.
Gerald Franklin again. What about temporaries and catering during the 30-day period? Will there be none?
Temporaries, I believe, are unaffected.
And catering?
Joanne?
I believe we can, catering takes place in the field. Usually they're able to handle those from the field. So I don't anticipate that we will have an issue with caterers.
Okay.
And that is, again, planning, ahead of time.
A lot of those things come up without a lot of pre-planning, oftentimes, and so the field can handle it. That's okay, I guess. Thank you.
So as far as caterings are concerned, Joanne, you believe the field will be able to accept catering and temps that actually have money attached to them? Or are expediting fees going to be waived because of the money situation?
We'll need to take that question, Amy, under consideration, but right now we're hoping that the field will be able to, as they have been, accept catering and temporaries.
With money?
Yes. Well, caterers, if there's an expediting fee, yes.
But the commission would not consider waiving those expediting fees, or if you would, let me just say, will the commission please consider waiving those expediting fees, knowing that you've left an industry with no other choice and everybody's going to be out there scrambling for workarounds in order to keep business flowing on our end while it's stopped on your end for that month or however long that may be.
Well, we will discuss your concerns and your suggestions.
Thank you.
And business definitely won't be stopped. August is going to be a month of intense work.
Well, Shannon, with all due respect, we're out here trying to make a buck, and businesses will be stopped. If we can't file an application for a month, let's be realistic about this. You have stopped business in Texas for one full month, which is why past administrations have not done this. Respectfully.
I have one quick question. Keith Coleman again. Are you guys going to roll out some sort of training or information on how to use the new system prior to it coming online?
Yes, sir. We have a communication and education and training plan that you will start seeing upfront informational parts of it beginning in February. And we will be communicating with you and providing training. Actually, at the end of this meeting, I'm going to go over what we will be doing for onboarding and how that training will apply to you. But yes, we are going to do everything we can to tell you everything ahead of time, so probably multiple times over. And then we are going to be presenting to you training, and then we'll be making it available on demand so that you can go back and review it. And we will then also have a industry go live support team that will be in place that will be available to you as well as you're working through the process, even after you've done the training and had a chance to do a Q&A with us.
Thank you.
Chris.
This is Amy again. Can we go back to the postmark dates, if at all possible? And can you kind of explain how the commission is going to ensure that the postmark dates are honored? Many of us in our association, because we feel the need to protect ourselves with postmark dates, have been sending everything in so that it can be tracked through FedEx, UPS, Lone Star, whatever. And is there going to be changes in how you're processing things so that we can have assurances that postmark dates are going to be adhered to? Or are we going to need to do what we've been doing through the pandemic?
Joanne, do you want to speak to that?
What kind of assurances were you thinking of?
Some type of changes within the agency so that the envelope isn't put in the trash before it gets to licensing or to BSD, who's got to mark the payment. That has been historically the issue.
That's a procedural issue that I can't answer. I would say if it were me, I'd probably be sending it with a green card return receipt, but just to
I
be
promise you, that's what we've all been doing. If it's going to carry this much weight when it comes to especially the renewals, I'm just wondering, well, I think I've answered my own question. Thank you.
Marcus Schwartz, again, one questioner maybe is asked for consideration, and I'm not holding you to any response right now, but certainly something to think about. With this month lapse, I think we all know, although it's a month of not taking applications, it takes a while both on the applicant's end and the agency's end to process these once they're in place. But would there be any consideration, or I'd ask that you consider potentially relaxing the requirements for temporary or catering permits to be utilized at new locations? So for instance, there's some 60-day rules and rules if a location hasn't been permitted before that make it very difficult to obtain temporaries or catering permits at locations that haven't been licensed before. But due to this gap that we're going to introduce, it may make sense for the commission to consider relaxing those prohibitions that are currently in place to allow some stopgap to where locations could sell alcohol on a temporary basis. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
This is Amy. Joanne, based on where you are right now with your processing for originals, renewals, and supplementals, and using historical data that's going into a legislative session and renewals and such that are going to come due between now and this September date, what is your expectancy for how far behind the commission will be at that time? Because historically, August is very difficult and the commission is behind. And how do you foresee this transition impacting that, and what will we see as an industry after that? I mean, I would assume using historical data, you all have some ideas to plan for staffing, et cetera. What does that look like exactly?
Amy, we're looking at all of these factors, and we're looking at, beginning our efforts early on all of this. So we're already beginning efforts to address renewals and end of year as it comes and approaches us with all the other changes that are coming towards us. So we already have some outlines and efforts in place to try to get us in a good situation by the time August arrives.
Would you mind sharing those with us?
We're working daily with the resources that we have and utilizing the resources we have and adjusting it accordingly to where we need to place the focus. So it's a continual adjustment of resources and inventory.
So for resources, have you made arrangements for additional resources? I mean, in the past, auditors and agents and other administrative type people from other divisions have come in and helped with those transitions. Probably the reason we didn't have to shut down for a full month. But are those resources going to be allotted to licensing to help the licensing personnel so that they're not carrying the bulk of this transition?
Yes, Amy, we're going to be working as a team and with all aspects, audit, enforcement, ITD, communications. We're all going to be working together to achieve what we need to.
Great.
So,
I know the licensing staff will be happy to hear they're going to have some help from audit and enforcement. That's wonderful.
Definitely going to be an all hands on deck situation. Are there any other questions about sections A and B of the proposed rule?
Hi, this is Mike Fannin with Fannin License Service again. During the period of August that y'all will not be accepting any applications, do we still have the ability to go ahead and work with our clientele on making application, at least through the local government, getting the necessary certifications under the legacy system, and then submitting that paperwork effective September 1st or thereafter so that people are being able to make application during that interim period?
That's a technology question. I don't think I can answer it.
Okay.
So herein lies our challenges. I was thinking that was more procedural. I don't think that from a technology standpoint, there's not any reason why you can't be gathering that information. But if you wait, if you're doing that during the month of August, you'll just be needing to submit that in September through the AIM system. And if you already have your certifications, then you can simply upload them when you're going through the process of filling out the application online. If you already have your certifications, you can upload them.
Okay, so to clarify that, Rita, if someone comes in, for example, the latter part of July or say the first 2 weeks of August and excuse me, wants to make an application, so at that point, you're saying that we should just gather the necessary information and then postpone making the application and having them sign anything, getting anything notarized, certainly proceed perhaps with certifications on the existing forms, but waiting until September 1st to use the AIM system to actually begin the application process within the agency as opposed to going ahead and submitting the paper copies?
Yes, the answer would be yes to that. With the moratorium for originals in August, for us being able to receive them, it certainly does not prohibit you from continuing your work on your side and then uploading it into AIMS.
Okay, so we need to just postpone until that time instead of submitting the paperwork under a legacy system if it was complete and ready to go then.
Yes, if it's not going to be complete and ready to go by July 31, we will have to wait for the Ames to go live September 1.
Okay, and then one other question that I do have, and that's regarding the current remittance situation. What we're experiencing, at least within the Region 4 area, is that quite often it's currently running anywhere from 1 week to 4 weeks, in some instances 5 weeks before an introductory email with a remittance letter is being sent out. And if y'all are in receipt of a paper copy of an application, for example, the early part of July, and someone is not in receipt of a remittance letter from you, that what happens to their application that's already been submitted during the month of June or July?
So the only thing I can speak to there is, or that I would like to speak to there, is that going along how this rule is proposed, it would not be considered complete and therefore received if it did not have the fee submitted, or at least postmarked as submitted by that time.
Okay, but again, if it goes back that it's actually been in your possession for anywhere from 1 week to 4 weeks, and again, y'all have not sent out the remittance letter, then that puts the burden of someone that's made application and actually submitted it to you for a lengthy period of time. Is there a thing under the legacy that would roll over, or are they just going to end up having to start completely over after having spent already maybe 2 to 3 months in an application process?
So I'm going to let Joanne speak to the procedural part of that as far as the delay that you're talking to in that respect. I will tell you the technology answer. We are going to leave the legacy system open and allow for all of the completed and accepted applications from originals as well as renewals that we'll talk about in a minute. Anything that is filed in this current fiscal year under these fees and structures will be worked in the legacy system, but we will not be doing any programming to switch it over so that they would be worked under the new fees and structures. Joanne, I'll hush and let you jump in on that part.
Okay, well, that, again, I'm sorry, I just beat a dead horse here, but I'm just concerned that if y'all are in receipt of the completed paper application and the processors have not sent out the remittance letter just because of the delays on your end, again, it's currently running about 4 weeks in many instances for the remittance letters to be sent out by the agency, that if somebody has actually submitted something to you and y'all have had it, and then all of a sudden you bump up against July 31st, what happens to the application that you're already in receipt of?
Okay, thank you. As I've mentioned earlier, we're doing the best we can to move around our resources. We're working together in a united effort to narrow these timelines down once we get to this June and July dates. So we hopefully will have these things ironed out, and they will not be an issue, and you'll be getting that remit payment letter timely so that you have time to respond.
Keith Coleman again. I'd like to follow up on the first part of Mike's question. I think there's a little bit of difference between the question that I asked and the answer I got than what Mike asked. And so I just wanted to clarify something. So during this 30-day period where TABC is not going to accept any applications, if we have a client that comes in and we start an application and we go out and get city and county certifications and comptroller certifications and that sort of thing under the legacy system, once you come back online after that 30 days, those certifications would be accepted with a new application? Because it's my understanding if you're changing the application process and even the types of permits and so forth, those certifications wouldn't be any good. So in reality, you're going to have whatever time length it takes to get certifications plus this 30-day window. So you're really looking at probably closer to 60 days being shut down than 30 days.
Go ahead, Joanne.
Okay. Thank you, Keith and Mike. Okay. I think that, if you've already obtained the certifications, then you can go into Ames and enter the other part of your application. And then you can go ahead and upload those certifications that you have.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
And that functionality, Keith, will, like Lori said earlier, is built into the Ames system. And so you will be able to upload those documents. You'll just be doing it sooner than you would have if you had started the whole process in Ames, because you will already have it done.
Very good.
Greta, this is Amy. I know that we all hope for the best, but we plan for the worst. If you can't come up on September 1, what are the contingency plans?
We have no plan for failure on that part. We will have gone through several stagings to make sure that we're ready for go live on September 1. Worst comes to worst, if just something totally unexpected happens, which I acknowledge can, we can certainly reprogram Versa and limp along if we have to. I don't want to spend money there, but obviously we will if we have to.
But if you can, because the legacy system will still be running, you would be able to take those applications that have been not accepted, or are you going to continue not to accept? I guess that's my question. Can you guarantee us that on 9/1 the floodgates are going to open, or is there a possibility the floodgates will continue to be closed?
I would never guarantee anything in this world, Amy, especially after living through 2020. But I can tell you that certainly anything not completed and accepted is going to have to go into the Ames system as of 9/1. We anticipate it going live 9/1. We are on target, we're on time, and we are making really good progress. And I feel confident that we will make that 9/1 deadline. But again, if we have to, we are keeping Versa online for at least 1 year, just to make sure that we have a fail-safe. But I do not anticipate having, again, we have to spend money that we could otherwise use in a more fruitful way. But we can certainly go back and reprogram the new fees and structure in Versa in worst case scenario. But again, I make no guarantees, but that is our goal and we are on target for it.
Has money been set aside during this FY to employ temporaries for licensing? Or are you going to truly just try to count on the resources within the agency, pulling from audit and enforcement, as Joanne has mentioned?
I personally cannot speak to what is being done from the agency budget perspective. We do have a lot of help in on our project, but they are technology related. But a lot of that of the contractors also are working with the employees on user acceptance and training, and we will be doing that training as widespread as we need to make sure as many people within the agency are up to speed on how to help people during the licensing process.
Thank you.
Shana may have had to step away. There she is.
I'm back. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the second part of the rules, and we'll continue to take questions about the first part, and of course you can always email me as well. But just in the interest of time, let's talk about the renewals, sections C, D, and F of the rule. Let me pull that up. Relate to how renewals will be handled. So what we're basically telling people is if you have a renewal date in September or later, that's when you need to file. You can't file before September 1. That keeps you from, that gets you into the new system rather than legacy system. We are also committing that, if your renewal date is before September 1, you're going to be charged the fees that were in effect on the date of your renewal, of your expiration. But I will go ahead and hand it over to Retta to explain all of that. And then, of course, Section F, the rule expires at 12:01 a.m. on November 1st. And then we'll talk about Rule 33.3 in just a moment, I suppose. But Rule 33.3 essentially is just a continuation of the 30-day time period for filing. We are planning to expand that from licenses also to permits. So right now, licenses that are up for renewal, as well as private club permits, they have to be filed within 30 days prior to expiration and no sooner. And just for consistency's sake, and because it's so closely related to what we're doing here, we've decided to add to Rule 33.3 to make that happen. So I'll hand it off to Retta.
Thanks, Shana. Okay, so with renewals, let's talk about this in a couple of different pieces to hopefully make this consumable, for lack of a better term. So when we talked about originals, we kept emphasizing the receipt date, right? So when everything is completed and received. And now with renewals, we're going to move over to the expiration date. So whatever your expiration date is on a renewal, and I'm using licensing as an all-inclusive, so please don't misunderstand that. I'm talking about permits, certificates, anything that could qualify under that. I'm just using licenses for ease of conversation here. But the same thing applies regardless of where we go with renewals in this conversation. I want to make sure what Shana said, I reinforce. Anything up to August 31st is current fees, current licensing structure for renewals. If your expiration date falls on or before August 31. If your expiration date falls on or after September 1st, new fees and the new structure apply. So let's first talk about, again, August is going to be our best example for the renewals. If you have a renewal that is expiring in August, you will apply like you always do. And this includes any of the months preceding that. So any expiration of a renewal that runs through August 31, 2021, you will renew in the same process and manner that you're currently doing. I believe it's Versa Online is what you all are used to. And you will interact with licensing along those same lines. That will not change. What will change is anyone who has a September 1 or later expiration date. That is where we get a little bit into a time crunch, but we try very hard to come up with a plan that would make it easier for you. If you have a September 1 or later expiration date, we are not allowing you to apply for renewal in August during 30 days prior, because you don't have the system yet to apply into. So what we're doing is when September 1 rolls around and Ames is in go live production, then you will be able to renew your September and October renewals where you expire in either of those months. You will be able to go into Ames and submit your renewal. Because we are putting up that hardship on you, especially those of you who renew in early September, right? So because of that hardship, we are waiving all late fees in this temporary rule for anyone who has an expiration date of September and October, assuming that you do apply within the 30 days beyond your expiration date. So you do have to get your application in before 30 days beyond your expiration date to have that late fee waived according to the rules. So that's kind of the crunch part of it, is the August renewals will be worked in August, just like we always would. And then September 1, we're moving forward. What we're aiming for with all of our communication and education that I brought up earlier, we are planning on being on a more even keel, starting with the November renewals. But let's back up for a second and let me say this one thing, and we'll go into it in a little bit later, is what we're calling onboarding. So we will have to onboard you and get you into AIMS, and we have a whole different process and that we'll talk about here in a few minutes for that. So don't think that we're just going to be like, okay, get into AIMS and do your September and October renewals. We will have already been working with you for 2 or 3 months minimum to help you understand how to do that and when to do that. So again, anything that expires up through August 31 of 21, current fees, current structure, current process, current system. Anything that expires September 1 and beyond, new system, new fees, new structure. And at that, I'm going to stop and see if there's any questions.
And this is Amy. You know, during the pandemic, the TABC has, you know, allowed people to file their renewals out of past the 30 days, et cetera, et cetera. However, the system has continued to work expiring permits. So although the commission's not out there rattling for a retailer's renewal, the wholesalers and distributors who are seeing the system and showing expired are rightfully refusing to deliver product. And so, you know, it's put the retailers in this position of, oh yeah, we've got this relief from the state, but oh yeah, our permit's expired and we can't receive product, so we need to renew this permit anyway. How is that going to overflow into the fact that the commission won't be accepting anything, but wholesalers and distributors are going to know from their own records that an expiration has occurred? How will they know that they can lawfully deliver product? And are you going to give those wholesalers and distributors some kind of pass during this time so that they don't receive citations? Because for all practical purposes, for licensing, the commission's not operational for at least a month. So I'm just wondering what allowances are being made for that.
I can answer that.
Right.
So we'll be obviously doing some training with our enforcement staff, and we will be training them to exercise enforcement discretion. So if those permits and licenses are expiring with a September expiration date, they will be trained to know that that's not a problem. And we may need to add something to our training. Sorry, may need to add something to our training or to our outreach materials to make sure that wholesalers understand that as well.
Okay, with all due respect, you can do all the training you want, but if the wholesaler won't deliver product, they're not going to deliver product. So rather than training your own enforcement people, I would hope there would be something codified in the rule that would say that, you know, that if violations occurred that are perhaps, you know, involving expiration of permits during this time, they will not be acted upon, just so that, you know, the distributor doesn't know if he's got an agent that's using good judgment or an agent that doesn't. And so a lot of people are going to be sitting out here at risk for something that's left up to an individual's discretion. And that's very problematic in my personal opinion. Thank you.
Making a note there. Thanks, Amy. And we are working with our developers to be able to do different types of displays in the system that where we need to override, possibly we can. If not, we can do notifications through the system as well as through our other means of communicating with them. Thomas, if you're on here and want to add to anything to this. That'd be helpful. Don't know if he's on.
Mike Fannin, again, one quick question. After September 1st, will you still be accepting the occasional paper renewal if someone, for whatever reason, drops the ball and is not able to do the AIM system, or is there still a provision for that?
Yes, sir. While we do discourage it, we do still, we will still accept paper. It does take a little bit longer because it has to be, even though we're accepting it in a paper format, the staff will then be putting it into the system, which is the same thing that they have to do now.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering, we periodically run across people that don't have access to technology or are scared of it or whatever and insist on submitting the paper copy. So I was just kind of curious. Thank you very much.
We're not taking it away from you. We're just discouraging it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the other part of the renewal is the 30-day rule that Shana mentioned a while ago. All of the other rules that we've talked about are temporary. The 30-day rule is going to be a permanent rule, and it is whatever your expiration date is, minus 30 calendar days is the first day that you can apply for renewal for whichever license is expiring at that time. And the system will keep you from even basically trying. You won't have your renew button until that 30-day count starts, and then in AIMS you'll be able to click that button and go through the renewal process. And that's pretty much it I have on renewals. And if anybody has any questions, we don't have other rules related to this. I do have information for you on onboarding and what that means. But I'll wait for questions.
Retta, this is Amy. Will the public inquiry system continue to run during this time frame based on the legacy system? And will it continue to be updated during that time frame?
Yes, we are doing all we can to make sure that there's no break in that reporting as is. And ultimately, it will be reporting off of the new system, but that will be a transition. For a while, we'll have a hybrid of information.
Thank you.
Marcus Schwartz here, and going back to 3311, specifically D with the September 1's renewals can only be filed September 1 or after. It's been my understanding that if a permit is expired, while you still can renew, until you've got that renewal on file, that you actually technically cannot sell. Is the commission going to make, for I guess the month of September, a relaxation to where they will not enforce and give violations to people if they do sell because they can't, you know, they say it's September 1, right? We can't get in your hands realistically a renewal application.
As Shane alluded to that, Marcus, when you introduced this section, the agency is going to do what we can to make sure that we work through the hardships of this transition and to help the businesses and make sure that they stay in business, and we try to help educate them and help them along as best we can.
That's going to be part of that enforcement discretion I was talking about, but we will look at that a little more closely and see if we need to do something more formal based upon the comments we've heard today. So thank you.
Retta, this is Edgar from Griffith and Hughes. I heard you mention override, and I just wanted to clarify my understanding. Are you saying that it's technologically feasible to automatically extend the permit expiration date another 30 days in the public inquiry system?
This was more in AIMS itself, where we're looking at that functionality. I mentally have not made the leap over to the public inquiry system yet, but I'll make that part of the research that we're doing.
All right, thank you. And I have a question, another question, but this one is for Shana. Shana, has there been any interest, or would there be some interest in exploring a rule to cover such a situation where, again, a public inquiry system would be updated to handle maybe the transition period?
We haven't had any discussion along those lines yet, no. And
Thank
that's,
you.
I think, more of a technology question, but yeah.
I'm sorry, I was making a note. Could you repeat your question? I was making a note of your first part.
Well, essentially it was whether there would be any rulemaking related to updating the public inquiry system. So for example, if it is technologically possible to give expired permits that 30-day grace period and make them expire actually in another 30 days, whether that would require any rulemaking.
That's on the table. And like I said, based on our conversation today, we'll consider whether we need to add that to the rule.
And also, I want to clarify that if we do an override, it would be more of making sure that if someone is going through that process in September and October, that they're not just considered expired if we're working on getting their license renewed. I'm not speaking from a technology standpoint of saying that will automatically extend it 30 days. I just want to make sure that you know that I'm not making that decision here on the fly because it's not mine to make.
Understood.
Thank you.
Ms. Mosley, hi, Dewey Bracken here. I know clients are going to come back and ask us, clients who really like to renew online and have hundreds, if not thousands of applications, and a lot of them like to do it on a quarterly basis. You know, and they're going to ask us, hey, how come this is only once a month, 30 days in advance? I mean, it is what it is. I understand that, but you know, is there a technology issue? I don't understand why we can't use the same functionality that we currently have.
I'm not saying that you can't. I'm just speaking to renewals in a individual or singular just for ease of this conversation. We do have the ability for different types of uploads of various files that can go into AIMS, and we're trying to help people that want to work in mass like that. We're not limiting it. I'm just using it as an example in this presentation.
So if you were a convenience store chain with hundreds or thousands, I mean, I'm still hearing that if they have whatever, 200 in August, 200 in September, 200 in October, once AIMS comes online, they're not going to be able to renew any of those except for that 30-day windows in advance.
That part is my understanding. I'll let Shana or Joanne, I see Joanne popped up, but to clarify that, but yes, that 30-day rule would apply.
And I'm just trying to understand, so, because I know we're going to get a lot of questions and inquiries from clients on that. Why is that functionality going, you know, from a client's perspective in reverse?
So I really wish Shana were available at this point, just speaking from the rule perspective. And Joanne, can you add to that? I don't want to speak for Shana in that part. Joanne.
Okay, Dewey, right now, you know, when they do go to renew online, they only see the certain amount of their permits that they can renew online. So basically, it's going to resemble that and be the same in AIMS, but it'll be the 30-day window of what's coming up for renewal in the 30 days.
You know, I get it. I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm just gonna have to explain to clients, hey, now I can go on and do it, whatever, 60, 90, whatever it happens to be now. How come that is going backwards with the new technology system? I mean, and if it's some technology reason, I get it. You guys are going to get a lot of questions about that. I'm going to get a lot of questions about that. I mean, you don't have to answer me today, but just understand that from the industry's perspective, that's a step backwards, not a step forward.
Hey, Dewey, this is Matt. I think I can shed a little light on that. It's 30 days. We're going to try that. We know that we would like to have that ultimately at 60 or 90 days. But again, this is a throughput issue and a staffing issue. If we got folks that come in and renew 180 days out with 3,000, that affects the folks that need theirs the following month. So This is sort of throughput control for right now for the new system to ensure that we can get folks and keep their licenses in a timely manner. We're not going to say, I'm not going to tell you that we're not going to revisit. That length may be extended, but initially it's to ensure that we're processing those renewals that come up in a timely manner to avoid the situation that we have now, which is things taking 60 days.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense. So, I mean,
Well,
as long as I can
it's not
tell
an
folks-
end all be all that it's going to stay at 30 days, but when we roll out the system, we want to ensure that when you renew or you apply for original, you're getting it much, much quicker than you're getting it now.
Gotcha. Okay, that's something I can report back. So thanks, Matt.
This is Amy. I apologize. It seems like I'm asking too many questions. However, with the fees and the renewals, and is it my understanding that there will not be a fee and a surcharge, but one straight fee? And I would assume with the programming that decision's been made. And can you just tell us in general, are the fees, do you foresee them increasing, decreasing, or staying the same? So that when we do talk to these clients and we have to discuss fees that are changing, we can give them some idea of what to be prepared for.
This is Shayna. I can tell you, what I can tell you is that for some folks, your fees will probably increase and for some they'll decrease. And it's going to depend on what kinds of licenses and permits you hold. And we really can't tell you much more than that right now. Again, but we will be doing the full, rulemaking comment process later on this year. And I know that's frustrating, but that's just really all the information we have right now.
I would completely agree with you. It's very frustrating, especially during a pandemic when a lot of them have a lot less money than they've ever had before. So, yeah,
and we are anticipating getting rid of surcharges, though. I can tell you that.
So it will be a straight fee as far as you are understanding.
I think that's accurate. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I think it's accurate that we're not going to have.
Amy, this is Matt. They're being combined. So there's going to be one set fee. You're not going to be paying a licensing or permit fee plus a surcharge. So your clients will see one fee. I can tell you that all the fees that are being reviewed are being based on a risk analysis of what it costs to process and enforce. And that's going to determine what you pay, not just something that somebody thought up or put in statute 30 years ago. We're looking at what it costs us to process that application and enforce that license. So as Shayna mentioned, that's the fees. For some, it's going to go up. For some, it's going to go down. But overall, it's not going to be a huge impact to the majority of the permit and license holders. But you will be paying the true cost of licensing enforcement going forward.
That's great news, Matt, and I appreciate that. And will those enforcement calculations be the enforcement of 2020 pandemic with everybody filing anonymous complaints? Or is that going to be enforcement cost pre-pandemic when people were able to just do their own self-inspections and enforcement was able to concentrate on things more than social distancing?
That's a very good question. And I can tell you that, the legislature appropriates so much money based on our costs, so it can't be greater than that. So while the pandemic has had an impact, a huge impact in some sectors, as far as the calculation for enforcement, the additional requirements that have been placed on TABC during that time are not going to be factored into the permits going forward.
Great news. Thank you.
Marcus Schwartz here. And while we're talking about fees, just one thing that I would mention, and I'm sure the commission's aware of it, but I would just point this out, is that personally from the industry's perspectives, we like the surcharges. The reason being that the local authorities have taxing or have fees that are based upon the permit fees. And so if you eliminate the surcharge and roll it in, then those county and city fees are going to go up quite a bit as well. So I would just note that. Whereas surcharges, they can't charge for that.
Yes, Marcus, we're aware of that, and we're working on multiple fronts to address that issue.
Thank you.
My apologies to roll backwards, but on the 33.11, everything in there is renewals and originals. And of course, I already mentioned supplementals, but I would also question certificates. You know, food and beverage certificates have become the bread and butter now. And I would just hope that somewhere those certificates are addressed in some of this so that the industry knows where those fall. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
One quick question. Once you transition to the new AIMS system, what is your estimated processing time from the time that you receive a completed application online with all the certifications and so forth? How long do you think it's going to take you to issue the permit?
Joanne, do you want to speak to that since it's procedural?
Thank you for your question. Well, you know, it's hard to anticipate what those days would be, but we're hopeful they're going to be significantly shorter time frame than they have been.
I'm sure you have a goal that you're thinking about.
We are hoping to get closer into the 36-day range.
Okay. Thanks, Joanne.
We need to go ahead and move along to the onboarding process in the interest of time. So Retta, can you let us know what onboarding means and what we're going to do?
I can, thank you. So as I said earlier, there is not there's no rules applied to this. This is just simply how we're going to proceed forward with getting everyone onboarded and into AIMS. We're going to do it and piggybacking onto what Matt mentioned a while ago in response to Dewey's question. We are doing this in a phased approach to help spread the work across about 12 months time total, and to make sure that the system isn't overloaded for no particular reason or unnecessary reasons, and that the staff has the ability to work the applications that are coming in. So this is a phased approach, and it's two-pronged. One, you have to, with instructions that you'll be getting from TABC, you will be going online and setting up your account. And then with information, pertinent information that you will apply into those data fields at that time, you'll be able to then match up what you put in, like a license number as an example, and then our system, because we will have preloaded this information of yours into AIMS. The system will pull those up and hopefully match up. We call that claiming your business. And once you do that, and you can do multiple ones, you don't have to come in and open an account and then claim a business. And for each license, you can do most of your work, if not all of it, in one setting. And then once everything is submitted on your part, then licensing comes in and reviews and says, yes, this retailer is who they say they are. They do own this license, and they approve it, and you're onboarded officially into AIMS. The approach that we're taking from that perspective is, again, we'll start communications in February or March, and we will start providing more detailed information just on what AIMS is, what you can expect in it. And we have some promotional type videos that we'll be placing online as well to help you get kind of a flavor for it. As we move into the late spring, early summer, we'll be getting more defined training content for you that will be posted, and we will be doing live trainings as well. So if you're a September and October renewal, you have an expiration date that falls from September 1 to October 31. We will start communicating with you in a much different way in June, so that we can do a live training with you. We will walk you through the system. We will teach you about the system. We will show you how to do the onboarding. We will help you, and then we'll be recording that and posting it online for you to be able to access it just on demand as desired. And again, we also are putting together a post-go live support team that is focused completely on industry to make sure that we're there to answer questions for you, not only from a technology aspect, but also your any questions you might have about rules, policies, procedures. It's an agency-wide effort on this go live support team. that we will have in place for you. So in September, that's going to be our biggest month for onboarding because that will be all manufacturers, it will be all distributors, and then it will be anyone with a renewal expiration date in September or October of 2021. And it also will be anyone who has an expiration date in September of any year besides 21. Because what we're doing is we want to we want to onboard everyone that has a September and October. We want to onboard them all at once so that when it comes time for their renewal, they are already onboarded and they're ready to go. So if you have a 2021, you'll onboard, claim your business, and then you will submit your renewals. If you have a September or October 2022 renewal date, you will simply onboard, and then you can wait until the next year, and then you will submit your renewal at that time. So those are the ones who we will be focusing on in September. Again, that's all manufacturers, all distributors, and then September and October renewals, expiration dates of those times, regardless of the year. The reason we're doing all manufacturers and all distributors at that time is because you will also be required starting 9/1 to file your reports in AIMS, and you will be making your payments, online payments, or we have a link if you pay directly through the comptroller. There's a link built into AIMS to help you just facilitate your effort and time on the computer all at one time. So after that, in September, so everything here is 60 days out. And this gets repetitive, so I'll just do a couple months just to kind of make sure it makes sense. In September, the training team will be working with everyone who has an expiration date, November 1, November 30th of any given year. They will be working with them, teaching them how to use AIMS, teaching them how to do the onboarding. The system will be opened up to them. In October, they will do their onboarding, and if they renew in November 21, they will be submitting their renewals in the time within that 30-day time frame as it falls with whatever their expiration date is. We then move in October. We then start working with people who renew in December. So we start working with you 60 days out to ensure that you're in the system 30 days out, to ensure that you're able to have your account set up and do your renewals in a timely manner. And that continues all the way through the next year. In June, we will be doing the last live training, June of 22. We'll be doing the last live training. We'll be doing the last onboarding in July, and then that will be for the August expiration dates for any given year. So if you apply for, you do an original application in July of 21, and let's say it's issued in August, you would be able to go into AIMS, do your onboarding in AIMS at the time the next summer, or if you feel like you need to be in sooner, we will do some ad hoc, but we ask that that be on a individual basis, just so that we can make sure that we get everybody in a phased approach, again, to make sure that the workload is doable for TABC staff, and that during that first year of AIMS, that we're making sure that it is stable and not overloaded at any given time. So again, we're going to try to overload you with information. We're going to try to make sure that the training is in place in a timely manner. And then we have support teams that are there for you, not only while you're onboarding, but also after you're in AIMS and you start working with it and trying to figure that out. We want to make sure that we have that support team in place for you, and as we work through that on our side as well. That's it for onboarding and claiming a business. If there's any questions, I'm kind of running out of voice, I think, pardon me. No questions?
Retta, in short, is the onboarding similar to what it is today, just so that we can have an understanding?
I would say no, simply because this is a new system. It is a new process. It's it's a software as a service. You know, it's in the cloud. We've got it set up and where it's been developed in a responsive way where you can access it from, you know, your phone, your tablet, your desktop. There are different ways that you will interact with us that is not going to be maybe similar in theory, but not in actual contact with your keyboard to the screen, just simply because it will function a little bit differently.
But in theory, a permit holder will be able to appoint an authorized rep as in the new system, and that authorized rep will be able to do things on behalf of the permit holder. And I'm assuming that that authorized rep will have to be onboarded along with the new permit holder.
I don't know if Lori's on here, but I just at a high level, the when you the one who has the license, when you set it up in Ames, you add users. And so we set it up where a licensing service can be added as a user, and then you would have access to their account.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question that is somewhat related to all of this. As far as remittances in the future, are those still going to be required to be submitted as paper checks, or is everything, once y'all shift over to the new system, is it all going to be online payment?
We have set it up for online payment. We can take paper payment, but again, we encourage you to use the online. It will be facilitated through the technology by texas.gov, and we have everything set up where it transmits to the comptroller appropriately, as well as it provides our information internally that we need for our reporting purposes. So yeah, if you can make your payment online, that would be very helpful for us.
Thank you.
As hopefully as well as helpful for you.
And will there be additional charges for using the online system, or will the payment be as it is now with the convenience fee, and that will be the only additional charge?
We are not adding fees on our side, but we do have the convenience fees that we have to do as a pass-through. If there's not any other questions, we've gone a long time, and we really appreciate your time. I'm going to turn it back over to Shana, but thank you for this opportunity, and we will take your questions that you've provided to us, and especially from the technology side, and work through what we can on that side. Shana, thanks.
Thank you, Rheta. Okay, yes, we have gone over, so I'll be brief. If you have additional comments or questions, please email them to me at shana.horton@tabc.texas.gov or to rules@tabc.texas.gov, or feel free to give me a call, although I don't have my phone number memorized yet. And we would hope to get the comments and questions, mostly get them in within the next week or so that I can address any changes that need to be made to the rule before the commission meeting on the 26th. So we really appreciate your timely action on that. Again, there's obviously a lot of questions still outstanding. There will be a public hearing on the rule after it is published. So you'll have that opportunity as well to make comments. And in the meantime, thank you all very much for your paying such close attention to these rules, and I look forward to hearing from some of y'all with your ideas on improvements. Y'all have a great day.